Mhm. Now I know, as I said before, you're a stickler for details, for documentation, for proofs to back up whatever assertion that anyone is making. And let's talk a little bit about something I seem like I've been talking about mine for the last 30, 40 years, because I can remember interviewing Dr. Malefi Asante, Were the Ancient Egyptians Black? And it's kind of sad that here we are in 2024 and we still have people debating that. But for the sake of those folks who may have doubts in their minds, I think Asante called it the legacy of disbelief. Let's talk a little bit more about, were the ancient Egyptians Black? And I know you did a lot of research on coming up with the proofs, not only archaeological proofs, um, uh, a study of skin and bones and hair, and also got into what the ancient Greeks said when they came in contact with them. Talk a little bit about that for us.
Okay, let's talk about the most important data. All right, let's go through it. If we wanted to deal with the ancient Egyptians, let's deal with it bit by bit. Okay, let's start with the hair. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, they call him the father of history, said the ancient Egyptians had woolly hair. Everyone's agreed that the term woolly in the context means most woolly, which I mean, I don't have any hair, so I can't say anything, but
Me either, brother.
you've got that. All right. So what do we know about ancient Egyptian hair? Five studies, to my knowledge, have been done on ancient Egyptian hair. And then when you put those studies together, you can then look at what is the typical ancient Egyptian hair cross section. Now, generally speaking, if you took someone's hair and blew it up, does that make sense? You've got a strand of hair, and then look at it from the end. If the shape is round, that is typical of Chinese, Japanese, Korean type of hair. If the hair is flattened or oval shaped, that's typical of European hair. And if it's flat, that's typical of African hair. And then the ratio of flatness is the lower the number, the flatter the hair. So the typical Negro hair, if you like, is 60. The index is 60. The highest would be 100. Does that make sense? Chinese hair is around 83, something like that, right? With a high figure. European hair would be around the 70s, right? When it comes to ancient Egyptian hair, it's 61.4, which is close to the Negro average of 60. Right? Moreover, the Egyptians had afro combs and they had headrests that are only compatible with curly hair. As one Egyptologist put it, they are uncomfortable for people with straight hair. And you can work out how he came to that conclusion because he tried it himself and realized, right? Okay, then we have ancient Egyptian faces. The ancient Egyptians had African type faces. Now, African faces there are a broad range. There are Africans with small noses. There are Africans with thin lips and so on, so on and so forth. But if you look at the sculptures, certainly I've been through the British Museum. I've been through the Royal Museum in Scotland. And I'm going to say on my authority, they have African faces, right? Then we have the studies done on ancient Egyptian skin. Professor Sheikh Anta Diop did those studies, but according to Azar Imhotep, more recent people have done the same studies and have come to the same conclusion: Negroid. Then we have the DNA. And the most recent work was done by African-American physical anthropologist, Dr. Shomaka Keita. And what he did was he looked at studies that other people had done on some of the Amarna era mummies, people like Tutankhamen, and then estimated how much of their DNA came from sub-Saharan Africa. And in the case of Tutankhamen, it was slightly higher than 93%. Now, slightly higher than 93%, that would make Tutankhamen darker than most African Americans. Yeah. Now, the 6% that wasn't sub-Saharan African, that doesn't mean we give that away, because that 6% might turn out to be us, but the 93+%, that's solid. And so when it comes to almost every measure of what we can do with the ancient Egyptians, be it their hair, be it their skin, be it their genetic material, the evidence is solid. Now, is it possible that there are ancient Egyptian mummies that haven't been found yet that turn out to be Caucasian? That's possible. But as I've said, that evidence hasn't been found yet. The evidence that has been found is conclusive. Same thing, the ancient Egyptian, what's called postcranial. Postcranial is the skeleton. Is the skeleton tropically adapted, or is the skeleton temperately adapted? The ancient Egyptians had tropically adapted skeletons.
Meaning that
they evolved in a hot climate. Basically, if you were to classify skeletons, Africans would go in one category, and Asians and Europeans would go in the other for being temperately adapted. So the ancient Egyptians are in the African category, and they are clearly so.